This is Alameda County Department of Environmental Health's community meeting for the 3442 Adeline Street project. We're here to talk about environmental conditions and how those will be addressed to support future property redevelopment. We only have one attendee, and I am going to take this attendee of ours and promote you to a panelist so we can see you and have an interactive meeting. Hi, Guy. I don't know if you want to show us your face, but if you do, we'd be glad to meet you.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Hi, you're our only attendee, but we're happy that you're here, and we'll go through our presentation, and maybe you can just introduce yourself, and then I'll tell you who the rest of the folks are on the call. Not to put you on the spot. You don't have to if you don't want.
Sure. No, I actually live right next door to the property you're discussing tonight, and I got the notice in the mail, so I thought, maybe I should know what's going on.
Great. Okay. Well, this is the meeting to do that. So I'm Tracy Craig, moderating the meeting. Next slide, John. Our presentation, Guy, is about 15 minutes. It's very short. With me tonight is Dylan Rowe, who's the chief of Alameda County Department of Environmental Health. It's a mouthful. Noelle Liner, who works with her, and then Trent and Tamara, who work for the environmental consultant for the property owner. You can read our agenda, about 15-minute presentation. It can be as interactive as you want. We'll stop anytime, and then we'll follow it by questions and answers, and everybody will go home and have dinner. Next slide.
Thanks.
Sure. You obviously know where the site is located, so I'm gonna, unless you want to point out your house, I'm gonna move on from there. Next slide, please. Great, site history. So it used to be a fueling station, and now I think you know what it's used for. I'm going to just point out that the property owner didn't contaminate the site, but is cleaning it up as part of property redevelopment. And then Alameda County Department of Environmental Health provides oversight and approval of any environmental activities. City of Oakland is actually the entity that would permit and entitle any development for the project site. And next, I am going to hand this over to Noel to talk about the various roles. Noel is the case manager with Alameda County Department of Environmental Health. He'll talk about the property roles and then hand it over to the consultant. Noel?
Thank you.
Sure. Hey, Noel, we can't see you, so you might want to.
Hi, I'm Noel Liner. I'm with the Alameda County Department of Environmental Health. I'm the primary caseworker for the site. I'm a professional geologist, and our consultants, Trent Weiss and Tamara Yerkes, are the technical consultants and engineers for the design of the remediation that we're going to be attempting at the site. So Alameda County has been providing environmental oversight since about 2006. And basically what you see here is the triad of agencies. We are on the end of the blue arrow, the Alameda County Department of Environmental Health, and so we are doing the oversight for the soil and groundwater cleanup portion of this. The other permitting is going to be done by the City of Oakland and the Air Quality Management District. So I would like to provide our technical consultant and engineer, Trent, to go ahead and describe how this is going to work, the cleanup.
Great, thank you, Noel.
Sure.
Yeah, so the property is currently being used for light industrial and commercial operations now and in the past. A fuel underground storage tank that was along just outside the property was removed in 2000. An excavation was done within the building to remove some residual petroleum hydrocarbons in 2009. And subsequent to that, we've been investigating the extent of soil and groundwater and soil vapor contamination at the property. And what those investigations have shown us is that additional remediation is needed to clean up the site. Next slide, please. So what we're proposing to clean up the site is an extraction system that'll clean up soil and groundwater through kind of vacuum extraction of both from the subsurface. It'll pull out the impacted material, clean it above ground. The clean vapors will be discharged under an air quality permit, And the cleaned groundwater will be either stored and discharged and removed off-site or discharged to the sanitary sewer, also under a permit. To reduce noise, we'll have the system enclosed within either a trailer or a box as shown here. We plan to operate for an initial 2 weeks. And if we're shown that it's effective and we're able to remove the contaminants from the ground, we'll continue operation until we've removed sufficient contaminants to the satisfaction of the Alameda County Department of Environmental Health. Next slide, please. So as part of our investigations, we will be collecting some additional groundwater and vapor samples prior to operation just to make sure we have a good understanding of what we're doing. The data we collect prior to and during operation will be used to assess the effectiveness of the remedial system. And then we'll also be doing community outreach to further evaluate potential risks to the adjacent properties. Next slide, please. So the next steps we'll be discussing is and going through, and that you'll see as a community member, we'll be doing additional community outreach to make sure the community has a chance to be involved. We'll be installing and operating the treatment system and doing cleanup on the property. During operation, we'll be monitoring the results and continuously assessing the effectiveness of the system to ensure that we remain effective at cleaning up the soil and groundwater at the site and operate it until we get the site clean to the satisfaction of the Alameda County.
Okay, I think I'm going to take it over here.
Yep.
So once again,
Yeah,
Tracy.
there you go, Tracy. Thank you.
Sure. Once again, Tracy, and we'll be sending out project updates to guide to you and your neighbors as we move forward in the process. Why that system is operating for 2 weeks. We'll have site signage up there if anybody has any questions. And then we also have an online website called GeoTracker that all of the technical information and then the information prepared for the community, like the fact sheet that you receive, is posted on. And next slide. Here's our schedule. We're at the community meeting tonight. We'll be going door to door in the area to work with folks to understand what their configuration of some certain homes look like, because there's some concern that maybe some material has spread off-site. So we'd like to do some off-site testing. Then we'll be implementing that treatment system, submitting reports, and communications are ongoing. Next slide, John. This is just our contact information, really guide for your purposes. Just take my cell phone. I answer it all the time. I can answer any questions or I can get you to the right person. So that was a lot of questions. That was a lot of information, and happy to take questions, particularly because you're a neighbor. I'm sure you might have a few. You got a well-versed crew on here too.
I've only got a couple really. Obviously, I'm really curious which properties you think it might have spread to.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have info on that now, great. If not, you know,
Want to
whenever
share
that
your
comes.
address with us?
Sorry. What?
Would you like to share your address with us? And I think
Oh yeah.
Noel could probably address that. Yeah.
3431 Chestnut, literally next door, on the Chestnut side.
Yeah,
Trent.
Trent, do you want to talk to him about this? Because I think would like to, one of the things that this cleanup is designed to do is to actually take groundwater and soil vapor in an area that is expected to go beneath your property and start pulling those contaminants into the remedial system. I think we've got either a 30 or a 60-foot radius of influence. Maybe Trent can speak to that.
Yeah, Noel, you're exactly correct. The locations of our extraction wells are along kind of that property line that borders with you as well. So there is potentially some contamination underneath your property. We have not had samples over there to prove it. We have some stuff in the street and stuff along the property line that suggests it. And so that's kind of why we're doing this outreach to inform community members, and also, and part of that will be to further assess and hopefully get some samples from your property to understand that.
Well, that makes sense. It's not surprising. And yes, of course, you guys have permission to take soil samples when you want them.
I'd love to get your phone number too. And I do want to just put this in context. And Dylan Rowe is the chief, and she might want to pipe up. But I will say that this is pretty common, that there's lots of properties in West Oakland and Oakland in general and all of Alameda County where contamination doesn't stick to property lines. And so in a preponderance of caution, Alameda
That's why I said I wasn't surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we knew where we were buying into.
So Guy, this is Dylan. So one of the things that actually I'm glad to know that you're the property owner that is right next to where we're putting wells, because there's decisions that you make when you're trying to figure out if a technology works, right? And we were looking at different areas, but we really wanted to make sure that where we were putting the initial wells, which will pull groundwater and vapor out, has a reach underneath your property. And so I think that I kind of insisted on that. There's the contamination is kind of in a strange pattern. So trying to figure out where we wanted to first implement this so we made some choices, but I think the choices were right. That one of the first things we want to do is bring this thing onto the site if it has moved off site. So, getting data at your site, both before we turn on the system and then during and after is going to be really important. And so I'm really, really happy that you are on this call, because you are somebody that we want to know during this. And if you are, it's going to be a system, it has some noise, but it should be in a soundproof enclosure. But we really, it is Noel and my charge to make sure that the community is protected as much as they can be while we try to clean up this old historic contamination. And ultimately, we're hoping that this system gets in and really does, really is effective at removing stuff. Again, we won't completely know until we try it, but we've put a lot of energy into trying to figure out what we think a good system would be at this site. So certainly Noel, Tracy, myself, you can contact any of us if you have questions during this as we get more data.
Great. I appreciate that the cleanup is happening. And I strongly suspect we won't hear anything unless you guys are putting stuff like on the sidewalks. If it's all on the other side of the huge cement wall that is one of our property lines, then odds are we're not going to hear it.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. And Guy, you had other questions?
You answered it essentially. So it sounds like the cleanup equipment's going to be inside their facility. In which case,
in the parking lot in the back.
Oh yeah, then we won't hear
not
anything.
Inside the building, but yeah, in the parking lot.
Cool. All right, those were my questions. Okay.
All right. Well, we thank you for your time, and everybody. Sure. I hope you all have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right now.
Thank you, Guy.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Good night, everybody.
Night.